Today we'll be showing how to install OME rear coil springs and nitrocharger shock absorbers on a 2008 Toyota 4Runner. Raise the vehicle on a twin-post lift. Remove the driver's side rear wheel assembly using a 21mm socket. Begin the removal of the driver's side stabilizer link by holding the link with a 14mm open-end wrench and removing the nut using a 12mm ratcheting box-end wrench. Once the nut is removed, remove the bushing retainer and bushing. Remove the passenger side rear wheel assembly using a 21mm socket. Disconnect the passenger side stabilizer link in the same way as shown on the driver's side. Begin disconnecting the upper end of the passenger side shock absorber by spraying the nut with penetrating oil. Secure the shock with vice grip pliers and break the nut loose using a 17mm box end wrench. Once the nut is loose, use the open end to speed the process. Slightly compress the shock absorber and disconnect it from the upper shock mount. Remove the bushing retainer and rubber bushing. Push down on the rear axle housing and remove the coil spring. Bottom first and then the top. Remove the upper bump stop from the spring. If rust is present on the lower spring mount, clean it with a Scotch-Brite or wire brush and paint it with a good quality rust-inhibiting paint. Remove one of the springs from the box. Ensure that the top and bottom of the new spring look the same as the old. Notice also that the new spring is a little taller than the old, which will of course result in increased ride height. Prepare the new spring for installation by installing the old bump stop on top of the spring. Push down on the rear axle assembly and install the spring, first at the top and then the bottom. Be sure that the coil spring is oriented such that the bottom end matches the shape of the bottom seat. Disconnect the bottom of the shock absorber by removing the bolt using a 17mm socket. Pry the shock off the lower shock mount using a pry bar. Remove the OME nitrocharger sport shock from the box, turn it upside down, compress the shock, and remove the shipping restraint. Unpackage the supplied hardware and bushings. To protect the lower bushing during installation, lay a cloth on the jaws of the bench vise. Insert the supplied bushing in the loop end of the shock absorber. Press the bushing into the loop by tightening the vise. It may be necessary to work the shock absorber back and forth to fully seat the bushing. Connect the bottom end of the shock absorber first. Place the washer with the larger inside diameter on the mount. Push the shock absorber on the mount as far as you can by hand. Then seat it the rest of the way using a dead blow hammer. Install the original bolt and washer. Torque the bolt to 72 foot-pounds. Prepare the upper shock for installation by installing the supplied bushing retainer and one of the two bushings. Then install another bushing retainer. Make sure this bushing retainer is the one that has the sleeve on it. Guide the stem through the upper shock mount. Raise the rear axle assembly using an under-hoist jack stand and guide the upper stem of the shock into place. Install another bushing, bushing retainer, and nylock nut. Tighten the nut using a 19mm open-end wrench until an estimated 18 foot-pounds is reached. It may be necessary to hold the shock rod with a 6mm open-end wrench while tightening the nut. Lower the rear axle assembly and remove the underhoist jack stand. Install the driver's side spring and shock absorber by following the same steps as previously shown on the passenger side, with 2 exceptions. Exception number 1. Be sure there is sufficient slack in the brake lines so that they are not damaged when pushing down on the rear axle housing while removing or installing the spring. It may be necessary to disconnect the upper brake hose bracket to create enough slack. The other exception is associated with the emergency brake cable. This bracket will need to be disconnected before installing the spring and reconnected after. We'll next show the connecting of the stabilizer links. Beginning on the driver's side, insert the link up through the bracket. Install the rubber bushing, the bushing retainer washer, and then the nut. Snug the nut down, but leave it loose for now. Then connect the passenger side stabilizer link by installing the bushing, retainer washer, and nut. Snug the nut using a ratcheting box end wrench. Then, while holding the link with a 14mm wrench, tighten the nut to an estimated 17 foot-pounds. Now go back to the driver's side stabilizer link and tighten it to an estimated 17 foot-pounds. Install the passenger side wheel assembly. Install the lug nuts. Snug the lug nuts using a 21mm socket in a crisscross pattern. Install the passenger side wheel assembly and lug nuts and snug them in the same way as done on the driver's side. After all the lug nuts on both wheels are snug, lower the vehicle until the tires press against the floor. Torque the lug nuts on both wheels in an increasingly tighter crisscross pattern until 80 foot-pounds is reached. That concludes today's presentation. We hope these instructions have been helpful to you. If ever we can help with your off-road needs, simply log on to www.lowrangeoffroad.com or give us a call at 801-805-6644.